Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris here, and I'm bringing you my review of The Flash, the recently released DC movie that really is sort of the end of the Snyder era, but I guess not fully because we still got Aquaman 2, I think, at some point happening. I can't remember the date that that's going to be released, though. So just wanted to offer my thoughts on this, and I think going into it, really the only thing that I seriously cared about with this film was Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. I'm totally fine with The Flash in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think his role there is great. I really didn't feel like I needed a full standalone Flash movie, but I will say that this was entertaining. It had some genuinely funny moments. But again, for me, being born in 1982 and growing up with Batman and Batman Returns, that sort of Keaton era Batman, I was thrilled at the idea of seeing him return to the big screen in sort of that iconic role. And I will say that I think that's the best part of the movie for me. So kind of digging into this, this is a movie that's characterized by a lot of really kind of bombastic screwball stuff. It's funny. It does have some genuinely funny moments. It is, I think, mostly entertaining in sort of that junk food kind of way. I wouldn't say that it's a great movie. I would say it's fine. Overall, it's good. But again, for me, what stood out was, Keaton being Batman. So that is a big part of the movie, and you've seen that in the trailers. There's no spoilers here, but I am going to get into some spoiler territory. So if you want to go in completely fresh, just step away, go see the film if you have an interest in it, and then come back and let me know what you think in the comments below. So let's just jump into it. So let me just kind of start by talking about this film holistically, and just sort of what I wanted. I wanted a fun time out of this, and this is really mostly what I got. And the plot, it goes something like this, and this is sort of the flavor of the day with a lot of superhero movies right now. I just saw Across the Spider-Verse a week ago, did my review of that. But multiverses, that is sort of a big thing now, and it kind of allows franchises and IPs to sort of merge in creative and interesting and often fun ways. And there's no exception with that here. I think that everything that they did in finding ways to bring in all kinds of different DC elements worked mostly well. The story here is great, I think. It's all about Barry Allen, realizing in sort of a fit of emotion that he can run fast enough to go faster than the speed of light, which is, theoretically impossible, but this is a comic book movie. We don't care about that, based on, the laws of relativity and Einstein and all of that. But he realizes that he can go back into the past, and his backstory has a lot to do with his mother being murdered. So they don't really do anything here with the actual murderer as part of the plot, which I found kind of an interesting piece of this. Like, I thought maybe he would sort of research and learn more about who the killer was, that sort of thing. But he realizes that he can potentially go back far enough and stop his mom from being murdered. And it all came down to a can of tomatoes from a grocery store being put in her cart and all of that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of nuance to that. It's a cool idea and it makes sense. And some of the connected characters like Bruce Wayne have similar backstories, and it makes sense that they would maybe kind of see the value in what it is that Barry is proposing in the movie. But everything sort of centers around that, but also the idea of the butterfly effect, which is common in time travel films, but you get that here too. If you step on a blade of grass or do something, it's going to have sort of a ripple effect that tweaks a lot of different things in the past or in the future, however you want to look at that. So, but here, what it ends up doing really is causing sort of a multiverse ripple effect. And so it becomes a little bit of sort of I don't know, a difficult thing to sort of process and navigate when you're watching the movie to kind of make sense of all of the multiverses. It's not overly complicated or anything like that, but the way that they sort of show it, where he's sort of in this time travel bubble and these different multiverses sort of exist outside of that and eventually start colliding, it becomes a little bit much. But what he realizes is that when he goes back in time, he actually goes into an alternate timeline of Barry Allen's existence, one in which the Michael Keaton era Batman is Batman and not Batfleck, Ben Affleck. And so that's how we get Michael Keaton's Batman in the movie. And in terms of things I enjoyed, again, that was the standout thing for me. I thought it was the best part of the movie. I think having that Danny Elfman score sort of crop up in those big moments was great. Keaton, of course, is awesome in that role. He really slipped right back into it without any sort of issue there. So to me, that's the peak of the movie. And generally speaking, there was a little bit more emotional heft here with this than I expected with Barry Allen's story. So overall, it was totally fine. However, some people I think initially talked about this being one of the best superhero movies ever. Like, I wouldn't say that's the case at all. It does have some great moments in it, but when I think of Batman Begins, when I think of The Batman, when I think of Man of Steel, I think those are all leagues better than this generally as films. So very entertaining, but it's also kind of a movie that's scattershot. And that's leading into my negatives a little bit. It feels like this thing is just throwing a lot of stuff at the screen to seeing what's going to stick. And a lot of it does work. Again, there are some genuinely funny moments, and it tries to be a funny movie. I wouldn't say above all else, but that's sort of Barry Allen's character, sort of that sort of nerdy comic relief sort of thing. And it mostly works. But it starts to become a little bit tiring as things go on. And I think that the other huge negative for me is the CGI. Like, there are some moments where it's totally fine, but generally it does not look great, especially for a movie with the $295 million budget or whatever it was. Something like one of the most expensive movies of this year. I just don't know how this sort of passes muster, honestly, and sort of makes it to the big screen. Like, there were moments where I really had sort of callbacks or flashbacks to The Matrix Reloaded. You know, that scene where Neo is fighting all the different Agent Smiths? Like, it looked like that. There were a couple of minutes, too with General Zod, who's in the movie. His face just looked nothing like him in sort of these CG moments. There's one sort of sequence in particular, and people talk about it being intended to look this way, but I don't buy that. Like, I just think that that's a bad argument, where you see a lot of different, Superman characters and Batman characters and all these different sort of comic book characters from different universes kind of colliding, and it looks pretty damn terrible. To be perfectly blunt with you, it does not look very good at all. But, if you want to look at this as sort of just, again, sort of a movie that you can just sit back and absorb as a fan of comic books, as a fan of these characters. And for me, especially, to see Michael Keaton, that sort of eccentric Bruce Wayne character, crop back up and just be everything that you remember it being, just everything great about the old Batman movies, the Tim Burton Batman movies. You get that. And that piece of it was the best part to me. Everything else was fine. It was just sort of a vehicle, personally, for me to get to that moment. So, would I recommend seeing it? I think sure. Like, if you enjoy comic book movies, there's a lot to enjoy here. There are some things that become a little bit, overwhelming and tiring. But if you like Michael Keaton's Batman, this is a treat. This was a nice sort of return to that, I think we all would have liked to have seen a third Batman movie with Tim Burton and Michael Keaton in it. This is not that at all, but it does a lot of things well, and it's kind of a nice treat. And what I hope this is a proof of concept that, yes, like, they could do an old Bruce Wayne movie with Michael Keaton as a standalone thing. Hopefully Tim Burton would direct it. I would totally go see that. I think this just shows that Keaton totally would be on board with it. It would be a great thing. So anyway, overall, those are my thoughts on The Flash. If you've seen the film, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think I've missed something here? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know what you think. And as always, thanks so much for watching.